What's good, Joe? What's good? What's good? What's good? Back again with uh some might say a controversial topic. Some might agree, some might agree. Some might call me crazy. But we gonna dig into this. It is not clickbait. Um and this is a conversation that well I just had like maybe less than 3 hours ago with my homie. And as of now, I believe it. I do not think a hip hop artist can ever be considered the greatest artist of all time. Now you gotta bear with me now. You gotta bear with me on this, and you have to. Well, first, before I explain myself, I'm gonna intro in uh how this conversation started, right? So, uh, my homie Chris hit me up, and we was talking about some things, and then he started talking about like shows he was watching or whatever, and then I started talking about like, yeah, like, man, like after I watched that Michael movie, and I just went on like a just a crazy like every like pretty much for like maybe 4 or 5 days, damn near every music video I consumed, every song that I heard was damn near like a Mike song or Jackson 5, the whole, you know what I'm saying, the whole nine. But like that's what the movie kind of just like, dang man, like I haven't really done like a deep dive on the Jackson 5 like as an adult. So I'm we talking having that conversation, Mike being legendary, all that, and uh him growing up and how that like groomed him to be this super mega global star, and as many people have coined him as the greatest artist of all time. And I don't know if I asked the question or he asked the question, and he was like, man, like I wonder if we can ever have a hip hop artist or rapper be in that conversation across like all like media outlets, across all walks of life, whether you're like a crazy music fanatic or just a casual music listener. And he said it's possible. It's just certain things have to line up, this and that. And I was just like, I don't think it can happen at all. I don't think it can happen at all. So that's my my stance on it, and I'm gonna stand 10 toes on it. Let me tell you why. So across all fields, right? When you talk about sports, inter, music, just straight instrumentation, producers. When the greatest of all time conversation is brought up, what you're really saying is that who was really like the five, maybe 10 that like everybody kind of agrees on, but we were just now arguing about who's one, two, three, four, five, right? And when it comes to music, and you're talking about the greatest artist of all time, that means you have to ask everybody, or they're in the most people are going to put those said artists in some order, but it's going to relatively be the same people, right? Meaning that those people, no matter if you like them or not, they are somewhat accepted across all religions, what I'm saying, all backgrounds, all ages, and can carry that music, across eras, even when they're dead, or where that that run that they had is over, it can still be considered classic across all those categories, all those uh like demographics, so to speak, right? And when you think about like the list that people already have, right? Of course, like Elvis going to be up there, Beatles going to be up there, Jimi Hendrix, Prince, of course, Michael Jackson's going to be up there because their music was easily digestible across the board for a lot of people. And I don't think that can ever be the case for a hip hop artist, right? And of course, I got this picture here of, people of artists, hip hop artists that we consider the best rappers of all time, but none of these guys are going to be on that list. Now, you might say Drake now, but his most streamed songs aren't even hip hop songs. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people, I don't even consider him a full hip hop artist, right? I just don't. Drake is a pop artist. He is a pop artist, right? And my homie Chris, he was given like like a criteria of what will have to happen, and he said that they would pretty much have to, one, of course, have the goal and be willing to be, co-signed by other internationally known artists to bring them in to their world to broaden their brand, which I believe that's true. But as a hip hop artist, that means that you would have to dial down your image, that hip hop, enough for it to be digestible for other people to like it. And then that pretty much turns it from hip hop to pop, right? When you sit back and think about the origins of hip hop, it is a very like blunt, rebel type of music, to where if you really are sticking to the core elements of hip hop, it's not going to be accepted across the board. It's just not. It's not going to be accepted across the board at all. And the conversation, we had a good discussion going back and forth about that, because even now, like when we just talk about just who's the best rapper right now, uh the most skilled guys aren't even in the conversation. So we're not even propping up the best hip hop artists to even vouch for them being on that list, right? So it's to me, it's such a niche and new genre too, that it can never, I don't see people really gravitating on a global scale, all ages, all religions, all backgrounds, like artists that we see on those lists now. And I'm gonna give some examples of what people are saying just about the greatest artists of all time, not just hip hop. What people are saying, and again, and this is my favorite genre. Hip hop is my favorite genre. If I made a list of my best artists, it'd be maybe two max, R&B, you know, type artists in there, but it's just gonna be just rap. So even me being a major hip hop fan, that was the first genre of music that I fell in love with, is hip hop. And I don't think there will ever be a hip hop artist that will be considered the one of the greatest artists of all time, um, because of that. One is that there's that rebel spirit that makes hip hop, right? Um, and it's just, you have to clean up too much, right? You have to that if it were to happen, it just, I wouldn't deem that person a hip hop artists anymore, right? I just really wouldn't. Now, and I'm gonna give some examples of what I mean based off just lists. Now, these lists, of course, you can say, oh, this is just some mainstream thing. This is just a bunch of other people that aren't black talking about music. And it's like, duh, it's not just black people in the music. It's not just, so you have to think about, like, whoever you might would say, whatever hip hop artist you say, oh no, he would be in that list. Like, imagine them playing anybody. Drake can get by with it, like I said, because he's a pop artist. You ain't playing Lil Wayne in India. You're not playing Eminem when he first really started out. in Australia, and people, someone 50 years old is like, oh yeah, this is nice. He ain't playing Jay Z like that in in these other countries, but Michael Jackson, Human Nature, oh man, like even if they won't play no more on their normal usual playlist, it's still like, damn, that is like a beautiful song. That's a beautiful voice. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna get to those examples, right? I'm gonna get to those examples the Billboard has, right? Of course, you got the Beatles, stuff that's just so mainstream. I'm not saying they're better than anybody on your list, but this is what just a collection of people are saying. People that that sing, play instruments. They even got Mike too low, in my opinion, of course. Stevie Wonder, not what I'm saying. I think the first rapper I think is Jay-Z. Oh, Drake. Okay, cool. He's 16, right? And in most why is he above Prince? Like I said, but it's just a consensus, right? That will make it make sense. And Drake is not a hip hop artist. He's very pop. He's very pop, right? He's pop. Rihanna sings, you know what I'm saying? So you got Eminem. It's just, of course, he's easier to digest. But most conversations of the greatest of all time across any field, you're really only talking about the top 10 for anyway, right? Um, I think Rolling Stones, same thing. What do they have at one? Okay, you got Beatles at one. You got Bob Dylan at two. I don't think I even heard too much of Elvis Presley three, right? And another thing too that my homie said is like one of the criterias that will have to happen is that they would have to get co-signed by one of the already popular Billboard artists for that to happen. And I think that only happens if they dial down the the grittiness of hip hop, if they dial down the bluntness of what makes hip hop hip hop. Chuck Berry, he's a musician, right? Guitarist. Jimmy here, because I said that already. That's going to be in a lot of people's list. James Brown, great dancer, performer, but has songs and albums uh, that gather people together, people of other races together that like his music more than the typical hip hop artist, right? Little Richard, same thing. Rock and roll. It's just no list. Who else? I had another list. Yeah, I had the Billboard. I thought I had like some other, but y'all get the point, right? Y'all get the point. It's not going to resonate with as many people as other genres, because hip hop is a rebel genre. It wasn't, supposed to be. It wasn't. It was never meant to be mainstream, right? And I think I did a video on that before. I had a statement like that up before in one of my old videos. Let me get. There was a topic going on some time ago, and people were saying like, "Oh no, like hip hop is in a bad place because we don't have any artists or songs on like the Billboard 100." I'm like, that means hip hop is doing good because it was never meant to be a mainstream thing. And even if you think, oh nah, it's great when hip hop is in like the highest of the mainstream. That's cool too. But at the same time, it's a major difference between the lyrical rap, that the one things that makes you sit down and think, or the guys with the crazy wordplay bars or whatever, and the mainstream music. It's a big difference to the point that the mainstream hip hop is really just pop. It's really just pop music, right? So even if you say, oh nah, it can happen or it would have happened if XYZ. Another question that I had from that we had asked during that conversation, me and my homie, was out of the rappers so far. Now we asked, could it happen? That means someone else down the line could do it. I don't think it could ever happen. But let's just talk about like what who could have been in those categories if X, Y, and Z happened, right? And we could only come up with two people that we felt like could be in those conversations if they were willing to dial it back a little bit. And we said Kanye and Pop. Now I'm gonna dive into Pop a little bit. I don't think he could have, because just like Michael Jackson, right? A lot of his upbringing is what groomed him to be this ultra mega star, right? He wasn't outside playing with kids and getting influenced by other distractions, right? He was on it from a kid. Pac, sort of the same thing. Black Panther, that groomed him to be a hip hop star. The rebelness, right? He was hanging around Nation of Islam. Y'all see his fiery speeches and stuff like that online, talking about pretty much the activism talk, right? That doesn't go to that doesn't really sit well with other races, other people of other religions. And then especially if you're older, you see this young black kid talking like that, you ain't listening to nothing he gotta say. Let's just be real, you ain't listening to nothing Pac got to say, man. And then the gangster image, right? That doesn't sit well across the board. Across the board now, I'm talking, hear me out. I ain't saying it's bad. Like I said, this is my favorite genre. I've listened to all these people here, but that bluntness that is just, it's not across the board for everybody. It's not across the board for everybody, right? And going back to the mic thing, that he was made for that. So he didn't have a lot of distractions. He didn't get into like the new 80s gangster rapper image. He hung around them, he talked, but he never got that fifth that image or that feeling from Mike. Even like with the bad stuff, you wasn't like you know, like, oh, he's bad, like, like, you weren't thinking that. He was just like, okay, he's edgy, a little edgy enough for mainstream media, but he wasn't like Pop. Pop was really, he really went to jail. He really, say he really was shooting at police. Um, that image, but at the same time, he did have hits that could be widely accepted, but I don't think he would have dialed back his that rebel spirit, that hip hop spirit, right? I don't think if he would have never um gotten killed, he could have gotten to that money level, right, of an all-time artist, but he would never be considered an all-time artist, right? I think um, yeah, he could have, done some little mainstream hits with some country person or whoever was hot at the time to do a little featuring with them on a song, like kind of how Kendrick did with Taylor Swift or something like that. He could do that if he wanted to, but for like an album, honestly, are y'all seeing Pac making some really general mainstream album that didn't say nothing about current events, how black people feel about this or black people? Nah, man, I don't see it. I don't see it. Right? Of course, did he have the talent? Probably. Yeah, 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 yeah. And then we said Kanye. Now Kanye is the closest we've seen to probably make that leap. But think about it now. He could easily kind of be that fluid hip hop blunt. I'm gonna tell you what I'm thinking. This is wrong, right? That type thing, along with that pop sound, right? Because because that he's made those crazy good radio hits. But then as he started climbing the ladder, boom, 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 that rebel spirit kick in. What I'm saying? When he's like, oh, George Bush don't like black people, interrupting Taylor Swift that don't float well with the masses. And then he, of course, people saying Kanye went crazy. Uh, and then he started to buck the system a little too much. Talking about these people stealing from us, that they rule the world, they rule the music industry. You can't be talking like that. Wanting to be a top artist, and you being so blunt and like pretty much saying fuck you, I can do it myself, or I don't need the music industry, they need me. The fashion world, I don't need the fashion world. The fashion world need me. And guess what they did? They kicked them to the curb, man. Kicked them to the curb, and no one would work with him. You know, so I think his albums now, no one wants to work with him. You can't be a top all time artist and then you pretty much just say f you to the whole industry like that, and you're doing it in a hip hop style, right? You might say, oh, but Michael Jackson did it. Yeah, but it was more like it didn't come across as, and plus he already made the all time hits. You know what I'm saying? By the time he came out with they don't really care about us. And even then, that wasn't like a dirty song. It was very clean lyrics, very clean lyrics, very clean lyrics. Um, Another reason too, if you for some people when you ask them who, uh, well, what makes an artist, some people might say you gotta play an instrument. That knocks out all the rappers for real, for real. You gotta be able to really write music. Some people say that. I've heard people say that before, or that's why Kanye will still be because he can really produce and put the sounds together, right? Most hip hop artists are just rappers. They come in, they rap, and then they have an engineer do all the other, you know what I'm saying? All like the music work. You just rapping. Even Vince Staples, one of my favorite artists, he said that out of all the musical genres, you usually have like stages you have to get to, especially if you're like learning an instrument. You got to be pretty bad at it, and then probably learn with the group. Then you can go solo. It has the lowest barrier of entry out of all musical genres. And that's facts. And he a rapper. Hip hop has changed his life. And he's saying like, nah, this is the lowest barrier of entry of music that you can participate in. So, on the grand scheme of things, I don't think that you can. Uh, there will ever be a rapper, a hip hop artist, even if it's a true hip hop artist that will ever be considered one of the top 10 all time artists of all time. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. But back to Kanye, but yeah, he just rebelled. Pac rebelled. Kendrick made a funk album. You know what I'm saying? To pimp a butterfly, talking about social issues. He did with Mr. Morales too. That doesn't float well to all masses like that. It doesn't. Jay Z. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't cross genres. And Eminem, I saw him on some lists, but that's just because he's white. But he still be saying some crazy shit that like a lot of religious people are not bumping in their car. Let's be real. Uh, it's just not happening. And even um, don't want to talk about sports too much in this, but why do you think Kareem is never considered the greatest of all time when you see most lists? Because he rebelled. He rebelled, and and especially at that time, joining a religion that isn't wasn't mainstream at the time. He rebelled. He rebelled, man. Um, would I like to see a world where hip hop is appreciated to that extent? Yeah, but I know what it is. I know what true hip hop really is. It's rebel music from trap rappers to the lyricists, the boom bap rappers, the woke rappers. It's all rebel music. Why are you thinking when it first came out, they were trying to shut it down when the gangsta rap first came out? They were trying to shut it down. Even in New York, like all the parties. I watched some documentaries. They were trying to shut them down. And how it was created, it was there was just scratching records and mixing stuff that they didn't even make themselves to rebel against, or no, not even rebel, but more of making what you could, making the most of what you had, right? And it just evolved into this thing that we have today. It was meant to teach, right? It was meant to spread knowledge of what's going on. How do we fight back? How do we get back? Like hip, me at the time, mean intellect. You're hip. Oh, he's hip to what's going on. And hop movement supposed to be an intellectual movement. And if you look throughout all throughout history, what is one thing they always try to keep black people from? Reading, getting gaining knowledge about where they're from, how they should do this XYZ, how to build this. Because if you it's rebel music. It's rebel music, man. It's rebel music. But my homie has some good points. I ain't gonna knock him. He has some good points. And but I think, but when it got to the point, those points he was making, it's like, oh yeah, he's yeah, they would have to turn into a pop artist. I believe that, yeah, whoever is a hip hop artist that does eventually, if it can happen, I don't think it will ever happen, because then you won't be a hip hop artist. You will now be a pop artist. You know what I'm saying? You'll be you've dumbed down your music to broaden your audience. And I got a quick little clip. Now I'll wrap this up. Um, Talking about Vince Staples and how he views rap outside of the the one little line that I shared.
Because at the end of the day, when the world over, it's just gonna be music, right?
Sure.
So if we just talking about music overall, and people that don't put their all in the music and that has some creative that started something new, how many rappers you think really gonna be in there? I'm talking about the Michael Jackson, the Elton Johns, and the Beethovens, and the John Lennons, and the Chuck Berrys, and the Little Richards, and people like that. How many the Madonnas? How many rappers we gonna have on that list? And if we being real, we can't say it's gonna be a lot of them. If we really want to be real, if we talking about music.
And I agree. I don't think he said that it ain't gonna be many. I think it's zero. I'm talking about just the broad, um, just the broad, like just conversation. Again, talking about casuals, the real music fanatics, just across the board. You just ask people in the street who are the top 10 artists of all time, from here to India, Australia, Russia. It's just what they hear on the radio, what they listen to on the daily. Just as far as like the global people that are known, a hip hop artist is not going to be on that list. Is not going to be on that list. I just don't. It is not. Do I wish they could, or wish I would, like everyone would have a hip hop, not a pop artist, not a hip hop artist that can make pop music. All right, but a hip hop artist, nah, bro. Nope, nope, and can do it over an album, and people like an album. I don't think it happens, man. But y'all let me know y'all thoughts, man, on this subject, and and if you disagree, tell me who you think that could, like, on a global scale, be recognized as an all-time artist across the board. That's a hip hop artist across the board that can be in the all-time artist music, just music conversation across of it. So y'all let me know. I might get a lot of controversy for this, but this is what I really believe in, because I'm talking about real hip hop artists now. Real hip hop artists. So y'all let me know in the comments who should be, in that list of the Michael Jacksons, the Jimi Hendrix, the Princes, the Beatles, that list, when it's just broad, just music. What hip hop artists y'all have in that top 10 to 15? Let me know. And yeah, till next time, I'm out.